Free agency is winding down around the NBA as we get deeper into July, but surprisingly, there's still some players out there that could really make a difference. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here. Let's get into the free agents that are still available out there on the market. Here's a great list via Spot Track of the free agents that are still available and some really surprising names that are out there right now. Malcolm Brogdon at the top of the list, a veteran guard, and I love the versatility that he brings to play either on or off the ball. That makes him a very easy fit a lot of places. Surprising that he's still sitting out there. Most likely his market is going to be a veteran minimum contract, especially at this stage of free agency. But Brogdon, despite having injury issues in the past, could be somebody that could really make a difference for a club. Al Horford, the expectation is that he's going to wind up with the Golden State Warriors. Now, I've talked a bit about him as well. 39 years old. It's possible he winds up retiring instead, but the belief is, again, that he will ultimately wind up with the Warriors. He would be a great fit there, but he'd be a great fit kind of like Malcolm Brogdon a lot of places because he's got that versatility to his game, can step outside as a big, can shoot the ball, and I really love the way that he passes the ball and can move it. But Al Horford, a veteran, would make a lot of sense at a lot of different places. Golden State would be a nice spot for him. Chris Boucher right above him. Surprised that he's still out there. Also surprised that he's almost 33 years old. How did that happen? How has Chris Boucher suddenly have 8 years of experience in the NBA? Time flies, man, and he is 33 or going on 33 years old. But another guy who I think could be really useful to clubs, and I'm surprised he's still sitting out there on the market. Same can be said for Gary Payton II. Maybe he winds up back with Golden State, but how many teams are looking for defensive guards right now? Everybody can use players who can defend on the perimeter, particularly players that can defend and shoot the three. While Gary Payton II isn't the best three-point shooter, he's at least respectable out there, and that's what makes me surprised that he's not off the market already as a 3-and-D guy. Yes, 34% for his career from three, but he's touched 36% before, 44%, a very small sample size one season. I do think that he can be at least league average from three, and with the defense that he can play, I'm surprised that he's still out there for a team to swoop in and add him as a perimeter defender to their squad. Trey Lyles, another guy that I like a lot, and he's still out there. He's a versatile big, can play the four, can play the five a little bit, and still south of 30 years old, Trey Lyles. Then we do have the fearsome foursome. And of course, I'm talking about the restricted free agents, Josh Giddey, Jonathan Kuminga, Cam Thomas, and Quentin Grimes. Those are the main RFAs that are sitting out there right now waiting for contracts. I don't think anybody expects that another team's going to swoop in and give them a big offer. They're sitting out there because of the restricted tag, and they're at an impasse with their current clubs. We've talked a lot on this channel already about Jonathan Kuminga and his situation with the Golden State Warriors, but you also see Josh Giddey in a bit of a standoff with the Chicago Bulls. Grimes trying to figure out how long-term of a commitment will the 76ers give him. And then, of course, Cam Thomas with the Brooklyn Nets. He thinks very highly of himself. Took some shots at Zach Lowe the other day on X, but Cam Thomas, an incredible scorer. I do think that at least one of these guys is going to wind up taking the qualifying offer, just betting on themselves, and then hitting free agency next year. Remember, if somebody does pick up the qualifying offer, which is required in order for a player to be a restricted free agent, the team does have to offer that qualifying offer. If a player accepts it, not only will they become an unrestricted free agent the next summer, but they also would have a no trade clause for the entirety of the season. So that is a real threat for any of these guys to pick up. But of course, they would like to get long-term security, guaranteed money, and a bigger raise than what the qualifying offer would give them in most cases. So it'll be interesting to watch, but I don't look at those four guys and consider them to be necessarily available unless we're talking Jonathan Kuminga, who I think is very available if the sign and trade opportunity is right for all parties involved. All right, Malik Beasley, we know he's got some extracurricular stuff, let's say, going on. Hopefully everything works out okay there for Bees, but he's not going to get signed. But look at this. Precious Achiuwa still sitting out there. How many teams could use a big right now? This may be the most surprising. This may be the most surprising that he's still sitting out there. Amir Coffey at 28 years old. How many teams could use help on the wing right now? A lot. Very surprised that Amir Coffey is still out there on the market. He was a guy that I thought would go fairly early, but I think what's happened is there are guys who are worth more than the minimum, and the music has stopped. right? The money has dried up around the NBA, and there wasn't a lot of it to begin with in the offseason. And some guys were left without deals, and that's a mere coffee right now. Somebody is going to swoop in and give him a deal because he is a talented rotation player, somebody that could certainly help out a club, particularly with his switchability defensively. And then, of course, the big name, Russell Westbrook. I really thought, as often as I may poke fun at Russ as someone who covers the Lakers, and we know everything that went on with Russ and the Lakers. I really did think Russ had a strong season this last year for Denver and was helpful. And I do wonder at this point if Russ maybe regrets not just picking up the player option, still sitting out there. Sacramento, maybe a landing spot for him. Milwaukee could be kind of interesting, although they just added Cole Anthony, but some team is going to pick up Russell Westbrook. I think he has accepted that he is now a bench point guard. He's going to be a reserve. He's going to come in. He's going to provide energy, explosiveness, all of those things that he does so well. And as long as he accepts that role with any particular team, I think he can be a real benefit. And I thought he did a really nice job of that with Denver. But right now, still out there on the market, unsigned currently. And then we look at some of these other guys that are out there. Now, Doug McDermott did just get signed by Sacramento, so he's actually off the market, but we're kind of getting into those veterans here, the Markieff Morrises of the world, DeAndre Jordan, Taj Gibson, Alec Burks. Some of these guys are players where just don't forget about them. Not necessarily guys that are going to be on a roster going into training camp, but maybe mid-season somebody gets an injury and suddenly you need a big. Could DeAndre Jordan get picked up, or a Taj Gibson or someone like that? Seth Curry can come in and provide shooting for somebody. Who knows? Maybe some of these guys get picked up before the season starts. When we look at veterans with that kind of NBA experience, those are guys that teams will usually be a little bit more comfortable calling upon mid-season and say, hey, we could use some help here. Taj Gibson's been picked up by a number of teams there. Taj has made himself quite a career, by the way, 40 years old, and he manages to get picked up each season. I wonder if we're at the end of the road there for him. Thomas Bryant, who has been fairly effective with the Indiana Pacers. He's another guy that I'm surprised isn't picked up right now. Cameron Payne is still out there. DeLon Wright, James Johnson. I don't know for sure if those guys are going to wind up on a roster or not. Cam Payne will be in a backup role at the guard spot somewhere if he does get picked up. But in terms of who's surprising that isn't picked up right now, it's Thomas Bryant. At 28 years old, is he the best defensively? No, but his ability to space the floor a bit as a bit surprising that he is still right now unsigned on the market. After that, you've got guys that are more potential than anything else in Bol. I know a lot of people are still big believers in him, particularly among fans, just because of the interesting potential that he has with the wingspan that he's got. But in my opinion, Bol has always been more of an in-theory player than an in-actuality player in terms of what he could be. I'm not surprised that he's still out there, but who knows? Maybe somebody gambles on the upside at some point. And then you've got guys like Lonnie Walker, who've kind of been in and out of the NBA, but certainly has some big moments in the past, scoring the ball. And then things start to really slide down from there. Markelle Fultz, obviously a big name from the past. He's still sitting out there. Can he get back to full health and return to a team? Will we see something there? Imani Bates, maybe a little bit of a surprise that he's still sitting out there. Christian Koloko did actually just get a two-way contract with the Lakers, so he's off the board, but you can see it starts getting thin pretty quick. So there's not a lot out there. There's not a lot of guys out there that are going to make an impact with the team, but there's still some players who absolutely should, and I believe will, be on NBA rosters before the season starts, particularly when we talk about the Russell Westbrooks of the world, Malcolm Brogdon, Peyton II, Trey Lyles, obviously your restricted free agents, Kuminga and all of that group. And then, of course, Amir Coffey. So a lot to still happen here. By the way, a little bit of news just broke as I'm recording this. Jordan Goodwin, claimed off of waivers, was waived by the Lakers to make room for Marcus Smart and claimed now by the Phoenix Suns. So he will not be added to this list of potential free agents here for teams to target. So free agency, again, it is winding down, but you can see there's still some quality rotation players that are out there for teams to scoop up. We'll see who's able to take advantage. Make sure you do subscribe right here to the Basketball Bulletin. Appreciate all the support we've received. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.